Hello everyone and welcome to Whole Latte Love live streams. My name's Zach.
And I'm Nick.
And today we have a pretty great topic. So we're going over filter brewers, specifically home brewers in these kind of like larger batch settings. But there's one kind of standout off to the side over by Nick that might be a little bit different, but you might be considering all these brewers when thinking about a home brewer.
That's right. So if you are in the market for a home brewer or you've been around for a little while, you may recognize the options we have here. Obviously the historic Technivorm Moccamaster in front of us. Zach, you've got yourself the very popular fellow Aiden, and then here on the side of me is the xBloom Studio. Now, you're obviously a big pour-over guy, so the Studio I think might have some, features that you prefer over some of these other coffee makers, but we're going to take a good look at all three of them.
And all of these are kind of designed to mimic what we would call a golden cup standard. And to kind of go through the definition of what we're looking for when kind of developing this term of golden cup standard, it really means that we're able to get a similar extraction, a high extraction between 18 and 22%, around that, at similar temperatures. So all of these brewers are capable of, getting that golden cup standard of similar temperatures, similar extraction, and kind of no matter what you put in it as well.
That's right. And so the SCA, the Specialty Coffee Association, does have a gold cup certification. They have a standard that you can have the coffee maker certified for. So the Technivorm and the Aiden are both part of that program. They've both been certified. And then the xBloom, as you were saying, can brew to those standards because this is more of an automated pour-over device than simply a filter coffee maker.
Exactly. So it's actually technically a different sort of brew method. So this would have actually already been approved by SCA many, many years ago, but getting into this batch brew method, before SCA actually didn't have it as an approved method. So when I had a coffee shop, back then I actually couldn't serve batch brew. I just did Americanos because it wasn't, brewing at similar temperatures. I couldn't control the ratios well enough. It just was not a quality result like we could with something like the xBloom, which is technically pour over, where this is a batch brew.
Yeah. So before we really get into it, if you're new to the channel, definitely subscribe if you're a fan of coffee content. We're serving up fresh stuff for you every week with our live streams at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then we've got the best in the business when it comes to our product reviews and deep dives on new items and features of machines. So make sure that you do that. And if you like this stream, make sure you leave us a like. We've got the chat down below, so if you ever see me glancing down there, we'll do our best to answer your questions in real time during this stream. So Zach, maybe with that we get started with our centerpiece here, the Technivorm Moccamaster.
Let's go for it.
In particular, this is the KBGV, right?
Correct, yeah. So Moccamaster, big name in the game of batch brew. They were kind of one of the early starts of that golden standard of actually being able to get really nice similar temperatures and actually being able to kind of weigh out your water and your coffee for the most similar results throughout. And in order for our results throughout all of this process, we're actually going to stick with the same coffee and the same brew ratio too, which is going to be a 1:17 brew ratio.
And what are we brewing with today?
So we are brewing with our beaned up. So this beaned up, it's going to be, kind of get like that marshmallow. It's definitely on that light to medium side.
So Mark can show us all that beautiful bag there.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
Fun thing about all of our bags is there is a cup that hides in all of them. If you can find them all, let us know in the comments down below. If you have them on you, I don't know.
Zach may or may not send you a prize.
Yeah, I could. In the comments. All right, so so we're gonna do a beaned up. I'm gonna approach this much like any other light roast as well. So as we're creating these different profiles, I can more or less control what those temperatures are. So something like the Technivorm, which what we're starting with, we're gonna go with basically what it does. So it's going to stay at a consistent temperature. It does have an enclosed lid, so we're going to keep that lid on because that actually improves the extraction percentage as well. Improves as in increases. If I leave this off, it actually decreases a little bit due to the kind of the atmospheric
so you're losing
effect.
Heat as it's rising up. Mark, can you do me a favor too? Just go ahead and show us those switches down there. because, as you said, this thing just sort of goes, right? So the Technivorm does have a few features that we can talk about, but really this is the most straightforward of any of the devices that we have here, so thank you for that, Mark. So obviously we have our power switch, so that's just going to start the brewing process, and then we have our cup size selector here. So on the larger side, that's going to be for the 8 to 10 cup option, and then on the smaller side, that's for our 4 to 6. And so what that does is that's actually going to change the temperature of the hot plate to hold at after we're done brewing, right? So on the smaller size, that's 175 degrees Fahrenheit. On the larger size, that's 185. And that will hold for 100 minutes after the brew cycle, and then it will power off. So that's to help hold the coffee at the temperature that you want. And then because this brews with the SA standard, that means that this will maintain a temperature for extraction between 195 and 205 during your actual brew. Just some more basic details, but this particular coffee maker that takes standard number 4 coffee filters in the cone shape.
All right, so what I'm doing the upside down right now is I'm actually weighing out 58 grams. So that's gonna create our 1 to 17 brew ratio that we're looking for, because the amount of water that we actually pre-weighed and put inside of our Moccamaster here is about 1,000 grams. We kept it very easy on ourselves. It's 1,000 grams, which is about 8 cups.
Yes.
So you might be measuring out things at home a little bit differently. So we'll do 8 cups of water, and this is about 12 tablespoons or so of coffee. So we're also going to keep everything as similar as possible between our batch brew methods by using a similar grind size on the same grinder. So if you can, I'll leave that up to you.
Perfect. So we are going to do a little bit of a sneak peek for you guys if you're watching, because we have a soon-to-be released product joining us today. This is the Baratza Encore ESP Pro grinder, if you want to take us back here, Mark. And so the Encore ESP Pro, we, here, I'll help you out just a little bit. We'll move our, there we go.
Nick's already messing up the set. Wow.
I know.
Took so much work. Blood, sweat, and tears.
So this is the Encore ESP Pro. If you haven't seen Zach's interview with Phil McKnight of Breville, definitely check that out if you want a really in-depth overview. But this grinder is the newest entry to the Encore series. I see it as sort of a evolution of the design to now incorporate some tech from Breville, as well as the Virtuoso brewer as well. And since we have it in single dose mode, I'm just going to do this in kind of 2 grind cycles here, but we'll start the first one.
And the setting that we're actually doing this at is about 48.5. So
yes,
it does actually measure the distance of those burrs, so you can actually stay at that similar grind size every single time. So it's not just some arbitrary number or anything like that. It's really measuring that distance between the burrs.
Give it the old classic Encore tap here for a moment. Now, those burrs would have stopped on their own since we're in single dose mode, but I stopped them myself manually. There is a auto shutoff based on the detection of beans basically present inside the grind chamber, but we'll finish that up here.
So another way that you could do this in one whole run as well is just by feeding it as the burrs are moving as well. So if you just want to do that, it's a little bit quicker. We're kind of doing this in 2 steps just to show that auto turn off as well.
I'm trying not to make any messes either here, but
there's definitely that.
Got our coffee, but smells very nice. But yes, there's a digital encoder on the front of the grinder that will actually show you your currently selected grind size. This is a stepless adjustment, which is a first for Baratza. So even though there is an actual coordinate that it shows on the screen, that is going to be somewhat relative, right? So there'll still be a little bit of movement within that half increment that's mentioned. So just something to keep in mind. But it is an Encore, so it is still a all-purpose grinder. And with those espresso settings, we've used it quite a bit. I've got an upcoming review that you'll be able to read once the Encore ESP drops. But you know, I'd say quite impressive for the price. So
definitely.
Check it out, especially if you're considering a new entry-level grinder, but certainly equal to the task here for our demo that we'll be doing today. So are we ready to brew?
Yes, so we have a flat, conical, well, cone-shaped filter here. So some of these you'll definitely have to pre-rinse as well, just in the fact that some of them might have that little bit of a papery sort of hint to it. So you can actually do a little bit of a pre-rinse into a separate sort of cup using some hot water if you do have a kettle. If not, we're kind of recreating how things might taste at home, because more than likely you're just throwing in the filter and just throwing it right inside your brewer here.
And so there
are the correct way.
2 little tabs down here too that actually lock the brew basket in place, so you can't just lift it off, which keeps it nice and stable.
But we're gonna go ahead and add our coffee
Load in our coffee.
And then I usually at least like to use these with a level bed. So no real need to make any sort of cone shape with that bed or anything. Just level it out nice and flat. We'll throw that top on.
We'll throw the top on in just a sec if you want, Zach. We can maybe show from overhead the water as it's flowing in, and then we'll put that on just so you can see. But Zach, how do you make it go?
Well, it's quite easy. In fact, it takes 1 click.
1 click.
1 click. Without looking, hold on.
Oh my gosh, that was some precision right there.
Wow, wait, let's make sure it's on. Yep, it's on the right side.
It's on there.
Okay.
It's on. The light is on. So, just some stuff to cover with this coffee maker as well, because it has the least going on just in terms of features, as we'll see, but in terms of build quality, this is a really impressive coffee maker. So if you're wondering where that price tag comes from on a Technivorm, you've got metal housing, so anything that you see on here that's white, that's actually powder-coated metal. And you've got a 5-year warranty as well on the heating element. So we've started our extraction.
And it is kind of a beautiful process too. It kind of reminds me of like a siphon brewer where you can actually see the hot water come up through the reservoir as well, and then just slowly shower. So right now it's kind of in that blooming phase, which it kind of does naturally as it's slowly starting to warm up.
As it will fill the basket as well.
So right now it's on the blooming phase. As it blooms, it'll kind of pre-wet and then fully saturate that bed.
Yes. So we'll go ahead and put the cover on just so our coffee is nice and toasty. And then Mark, if you want to go down actually to the base of our carafe, you'll see too, one of the interesting things is that the carafe fills from the bottom. So there's a funnel that actually goes all the way from the lid down to the bottom of the carafe. So that way the coffee is mixing as it brews, right? So you don't have layers that form.
Yeah, so that's one thing that we ran into a long time ago with those batch brew methods, is that you'll have different cups throughout that brewing process. The top side is very light, pretty weak, where the bottom side is a high extraction, high yield at the bottom. Now, once you mix that together, yes, you can have plenty of good cups, but the way those would brew, much like you'll actually see within the fellow, that you'll actually have to stir that around a little bit. Maybe use the back of a spoon, kind of give it a couple stirs, or just stir it gently around without burning yourself.
So this brew time is going to be about 4 to 6 minutes. It does depend on how much coffee you're making. So for us, with it being 8 cups, we're probably going to be close to around 5 and some change. Now, just to talk a little bit about this further, like I said, 5-year warranty on the heating element inside this coffee maker. And this is the only product that we have up here that is not made in China. So the Fellow and the xBloom are both made in China. This is actually made in the Netherlands. So the Technivorm, to me, is the perfect product, especially for somebody who, let's say that you are someone who has a prosumer espresso machine, you are investing in high quality coffee, but maybe your filter coffee is something that, maybe you don't pay as much attention to, or you don't have a grinder that's necessarily perfect for like filter brewing. So maybe you've gone and picked up a pre-ground filter coffee from a cafe, or you have a multi-purpose grinder, but this is a nice coffee maker for somebody with a prosumer who, sometimes you just want that volume, but you don't want the Americano, right? You want something that's going to extract a little differently, have a little bit of a different profile. Like, that's who this is for. And there are a ton of colors that you can get this machine in as well.
Yeah, so the aesthetics that you can actually choose for your kitchen, this might be the brewer for you, since the other 2 boxes over here, if you actually want to bring that back into to view here, the other 2 boxes, I would say, there is quite a height with the xBloom over there. This brewer with the Fellow, it's pretty similar in actually occupying how much space it is, around like that 12 something odd inches, but only white and black for these 2 box style machines.
Well, and you say box, I mean, it is a very cubic design.
It is a very cubic design.
You know, pointed edges that you've got. So one thing to keep in mind though too is obviously for the Technivorm, some of that money that you're spending is going to be in the build materials, right? But when you start to look at something like the fellow Aiden or the xBloom, that's where you're actually spending a little bit more money to get more actual features and technology. So, you know, while this finishes up, Zach, why don't we get started with the Aiden here?
Yes, so with the Aiden, we are starting to upgrade in that ability. Let's say you don't mind connecting to an app. You also want to maybe have other people create your profiles for you, and maybe you want to really dive into some pretty difficult to brew coffees, like some lighter roasts, some anaerobic processes. Maybe you have a good relationship with some roasters in your area, or you order coffee online. That is when the fellow really comes out to play.
Yes.
Being able to actually control different kinds of pours and then different abilities. So you can both do the larger batch brew, but you can now actually do single cups by adjusting your actual shower screen at the top. Mark, if we can go ahead and get a view of this shower screen as well, we'll show that it's a little bit different from what you see on the Technivorm, giving it a little more possibility within our programming that we'll get into.
So you can see obviously coded between green and blue, so that corresponds with the basket, also the number of dots that you have here. So we've got, there we go. 3 for our batch brew. You've got a single one, obviously, for the single cone as well. Those exchange, like Zach was saying, based on what you want to brew, and that valve inside the top of the coffee maker chooses which of the showers it actually will have water flow through. So it concentrates more in the center when you're making that single cup.
Exactly. So for our case today, we're going to be trying to match what the Technivorm just did. So that 1,000 grams of water to, well, the 1:17, which will actually tell you on this little heads-up display. So the heads-up display on this is pretty nifty. It is a color display, and it has all of your settings right there on the brewer.
That's right. So you can use the brewer to create these profiles in addition to using the app. So that is one of these things with IoT products, is obviously there is a component of it where being connected obviously to Wi-Fi or to the internet is important when it comes to being able to access the full range of features. So for instance, if you have a cottage, or maybe you like to go camping or have an RV, and you might find yourself in areas where the internet is spotty sometimes or unreliable, something like the Technivorm would probably serve you a little bit better, just in the sense that the full functionality is always available. Now, with the fellow here too, though, it's really cool because if you're a fan of their design, the design language of the kettles with the circular motif in both the display and in the dial are mimicked here in the Aiden. So Zach, are you gonna make us a little brew profile here?
I am indeed. So once I have that filter and choose the fact that we are going to be doing a batch brew method right now, I'm going to go ahead and, well, actually, we need some coffee in there.
Yes, so you want me to do another, what, 58 grams?
Well, one cool thing about this, once we actually establish all of our settings within here, we actually started it from the beginning for you. These are kind of the original startup settings here. So we're just going to press English.
Well, here, yeah, Mark's got you there. So English, now you're choosing your unit type.
Which I'm going to go for metric, because I'm crazy, right? All right, so I did press sea level. Most people can actually change their meters in elevation, which we're actually around 180. One cool thing is, you know, I accidentally pressed sea level. I do have the app feature down below where I can actually dive into more of that. So if I accidentally pressed 0, maybe it's easier to actually change it over here. I'm going to go to 180 meters because that's where we are in New York right now, and we'll see that that actually updates the machine over here.
You said 58 grams, right?
We're actually going to let the machine tell us how many grams.
Oh, okay.
So once we actually go through this,
so we're going for that 1:17 ratio.
We are going for the 1:17 ratio.
Okay.
So technically, yes, you can go ahead and weigh that out for me.
Well, just so that I've got it ready for you here.
All right, so we're going to go through a guided brew process right now. So let's go ahead and get that close up on that circular screen here. So as you can see, there's a couple different things here. So first off, we have a sleep mode, an instant brew if we want to just get straight to it, a guided brew, we can also edit those profiles of those guided brews, schedule, and then we can go into some deeper settings. So let's look at what our guided brews are right now. So we have installed already just a light roast, a medium roast, a dark roast, a cold brew, and then we can actually look into Fellows coffee drops if we do want to mimic some of the coffees that they explore on their website itself. And then we can see some of those custom profiles already imported in from this original update. So as you scroll through, you can find maybe a similar coffee or the coffee that you're actually using. A lot of roasters are now actually importing a lot of their recipes.
And Fellow does have some pre-configured options for light, medium, and dark roasts as well, just that come stock in the machine via the guided brew.
So what we're going to do now, if we can go ahead and get a close-up back onto the screen, we're going to go ahead and edit a profile. So once we edit the profile, we can click in, and we're just going to go ahead and create a new. There's nothing else here. We can either edit maybe the medium brew or start with something down here and then change from there. So let's go ahead, start from new. We can change my brew to whatever you want. Let's just say my brew, my light. There we go. And every time you need to go back, you actually have to scroll all the way up to go back because it is that just one singular circle that we have on there. Then let's go ahead and change our temperature. I'm actually going to brew this at 95 degrees. And let's go ahead and change that brew ratio as well to 1:17.
And you were adjusting there in half increments as well.
Correct.
So 16.5 was a selectable option.
And then we can even get into some more advanced settings of maybe we want to change that bloom function as well. So we definitely have it enabled here. Let's go ahead and get back inside the settings. There, perfect. And then we're going to change this to a 1:3.
And so Zach, just what we're doing here for the bloom, right, is you've set your coffee, right? You've programmed in the amount of coffee that you're using.
Yeah, so I programmed the ratio, so the amount of coffee to water, and now it's looking at a different ratio to see what I want to do for a bloom. I'm going to do a lower temp for my bloom, so I'm actually going to decrease this to, let's say, 93. We'll select that, and then we're going to back out. And then we can even change the batch pulses as well. So let's go ahead and just change this to 2 batch pulses at 30 seconds each, 95 degrees, and let's call that good. All right, so we just need to back out. This was called My Light. Whoop. We'll back out of that.
You know, I would say coffee is perhaps the light of your life, Zach.
Oh yes, every single morning. And this thing has saved me plenty in my mornings. All right, so we'll exit out of edit profiles. Again, backing all the way out. And we'll go back to a guided brew and find my light right there. So once we find my light, I'm gonna tell it how much I want inside here. So I'm going to about 1,000 milliliters here. Right about there. And it's actually telling me 61.7 grams for this. So let's go ahead and listen to what it says.
Sure, I'll toss a little bit more in there. There's your 58 that I gotcha. So.
58, okay. So pretty similar. I'm just going to go ahead and pour this right in. Luckily you can take this right out. Give it a little shimmy. And once you actually have this done and set, we just let it go. It'll tell you when everything's ready, and also when you're creating those profiles, you don't have to go through the hassle of actually doing this on the brewer itself. You can definitely go through the app instead. But it is nice the fact that you don't have to actually just rely on the app itself.
Right, and so when Zach was setting up his bloom with that 1:3 ratio, that's 1:3 water to coffee against that 61.7.
Correct.
Exactly. And then those pulses, those batch pulses, right, that's designed to imitate kind of like if you were pouring in phases for pour over, right? And that's why you can change the duration in between. You can also change the temperature, right? So if you had a kettle that you were pouring with that's cooling over time, you could mimic that, right, by lowering the temperature on your later pulses during your extraction.
Because that's one of the main taste differences that you'll find between making yourself a pour over and one of these batch brews that are really controlling the temperature and trapping in a lot of that heat. That's why these often are a little bit higher of an extraction. You have a little more total dissolved solids within these closed environments than your open environment pour over that you're doing. So if you want to mimic that pour over that you're doing, you can actually more so get that on this brew method now by lowering that temperature between maybe multiple different kinds of pours.
So Zach, that's going to take us about 8 minutes. Let's trade places here and you can walk us through the xBloom.
Wonderful. Let's go ahead and do it. All right. So I'll open my next app here.
Yes, we have all the apps today.
All right, and we have a little bit of a taller machine over here. So there is an aesthetic kind of difference here. And you'll notice that it's not a batch brew. This is an entirely different method that we're looking over here. So this is actually going to imitate your exact pour over. And one of the best things, and the reason why we use it in the lab here, is that it is so precise every single time. Because now we can actually control the direction in which we're pouring, the flow rate in which we're pouring that water, and the temperature of that water.
That's right. So
along with agitation as well.
The xBloom really combines a number of different things. So it is a pour over, an automated pour over device, right? So it has a spout that moves that can change the pouring, but you also have a built-in scale, and you have a built-in grinder. And each of these components can be used individually or in concert with one another for a brew profile, correct?
Correct.
That's
and roasters themselves can then actually assist you with this by both using the app, and there is a little bit of a reader on the top side of this. So if xBloom does work with maybe your local roaster, you might find these little pods and bags very similar to this, where you can actually use this card to scan the top. It reads it, and it'll actually download the actual brew that you want to brew this specific coffee. So those roasters have developed specific profiles with specific pours, maybe agitation, change in temperatures over time.
Grind setting.
Grind settings as well, specifically for that coffee, so you taste it as the roaster intended.
That's right, and so that's it's called an X-Pod, and for Mark, who we've got behind the camera, those are whole beans sealed in the pod that are then ground fresh during the brew cycle, so they are not pre-ground pods. So Mark gave us a little wave there. I think that was the wave of approval. And if any of you have questions about any of this stuff too while we're going over it, feel free to leave those down in the comments. But yeah, so Zach, this is like, it's a coffee maker, but it's really an automated pour-over device. Like, it's sort of combining a lot of different kinds of machines. It's almost like a super auto to some extent, but then totally like you've got some single serve elements, but then it's got a scale, right? Like, it does all sorts of stuff. Like, it's really kind of a coffee geek's dream machine in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and many people think it's like, oh, well, I'm locked into one type of thing, or oh man, I'm buying this thing, but it only does that. Well, no, not necessarily, because yes, xBloom pods come with this, but there are also other brew methods that you can use, like their proprietary one that you can still use the agitation feature in, which is a really nice like flat bottom. The filter locks into these. Or you can actually use any sort of method, and you can still use the scale on the bottom. So all you have to do is find a vessel that will actually fit underneath.
Yep, so we've got our Brewista Tornado there.
And you can use any sort of method. So with this, you do need a little bit of a shorter vessel on the bottom. So definitely look out for different kinds of methods that might fit underneath that. AeroPress is a very common one. And you can even brew tea. So there's a lot of different things that you can really do in there, all assisted by that app as well.
Yeah, and I think the thing that we should highlight that Zach is sort of demonstrating with the height restriction that you run into is the fact that the xBloom is really more, I would say, for on-demand premium coffee, but maybe for 1 to 2 people, right? So you're really making like a perfect cup. Whereas when you look at the Aiden and you look at the Technivorm, it does have a little bit more capacity to make larger servings.
Yeah.
So this, like I said, just with the limitations of the height with the vessels, is going to be more for those kind of like intimate cups as opposed to like a big batch for a large group.
Yeah, there's a routine difference between these. So I think these batch brews are made for a very specific customer.
Yes.
You know, they want to brew for multiple cups. Maybe they're drinking the whole pot, which, like, personally, yes, I do that. Or they're brewing for other people. Now, xBloom does make that pretty difficult in the sense that everything is built in and it can still do this automated on its own. So you can walk away and then easily brew for the next person, which maybe we'll show. We'll brew 2 cups right now.
Well, yeah, go ahead, show us that, Zach, because
All
I'm
right.
hoping that by the time we're done with everything, we'll kind of have all our coffees here to sample together.
So we're gonna go ahead and pick a profile over here. So I'm gonna switch spots with you so I can go ahead and get into the app. So I'm already connected to our xBloom here. So you can actually still connect to both the grinder, which you see there. So you can still use your grinder for other brew methods that you might have, all the way down to espresso still.
That's right. And there is a little bit of a guide here on the lid too. Reminds me a bit of the lid on the Fellow, like the Opus grinder or the Ode, right, where you take the top of the hopper off and it's got the little chart. There is a grind size chart right here in the lid of the water reservoir. So if you're ever like, I'm starting to get experimental with my manual brewing, how do I do that? That's a good little reminder of where those settings get you.
Because although the interface is really nice through the app, you can still just use those gnarled metal, what are those called?
It's like a knurled knob,
Yeah,
essentially,
it's a
right?
knob
so you can
there.
tap it, and then there's just a great, nice metal texture on there as well. So it just feels good. It looks and feels good.
So you can still control everything from that, but the interface of this app is quite nice.
Yes.
Now you can change that interface so those gnarled knobs actually mean something else through the settings. You can actually program, maybe you find one of these pour over settings is maybe your favorite, like this 4-pour recipe. Maybe I want this as A or B or C, which you can actually set to those knobs instead of it being in the pro mode, which is it's currently under, where you can actually control the grinder, the scale, and all that fun stuff.
We're getting a little admonishment from Zach in the comments there. We called them knobs. They are in fact encoders.
Oh, encoders, yes. That's the word that I was looking for. All right, perfect. So we're currently in the app, and you know what? I'm just gonna go for a natural 4-pour. This is typically what I'm doing when I'm looking at doing a pour over. I'm usually doing a 4-pour or a 5-pour. That's usually how we acknowledge what kind of pour we're doing into certain
And by
amounts.
4-pour, you mean you're dividing up your total water into 4 pouring.
Correct.
Sessions, right? And that's, again, what the pulses on the Fellow Aiden is trying to imitate, essentially. And if I recall correctly, that's what, you're at about 255 milliliters, it looks like, on the recipe that you've got there?
Correct.
Yeah, so really like a quarter of the amount that we used for our other 2 brew methods. That
So this will be a little bit more precise on how we're actually extracting. Then again, you can also edit through this and increase any amount here. So if I want to increase the amount of pours or anything like that, you can do it within percentage. And you can also control what kind of pour it's doing. As you can see at the end, it's doing a center pour. These first ones are actually doing a circular pour, so we can actually extract the full bed, where this last one maybe agitates the bed so we can actually have a quicker drawdown. There's
and you
different
have,
kinds
it looks like,
there.
too, obviously, the milliliters per second, and also the temperature for that pour as well.
Correctly. So if we need any increases of that temperature, let's say I really want this to be increased right there by 203. I actually do want that increased by 203, so we're going to save that. And let's change the next one to 203, and then we're going to end at that 200 degrees.
But
we're going to go ahead and save that.
Very similar to what we just saw with the Aiden with the pulse programming, but even obviously more involved with the ability to change the pour, because the pour spout on this device moves and will pour water in a stream as opposed to using a shower like you would have on a traditional coffee maker.
Correct. And all we're going to have to do now is
Now, Zach,
follow
do you
this
want to
recipe.
use the scale here as opposed to the scale on your AccuMini?
We can, indeed.
Indeed.
Indeed. So I'm going to go ahead and get into that. Oh, it's not grinder setting. That's going to be a scale setting here.
Yes. So
All right, so
oh,
we'll go ahead and set that there. You can either tear it from your machine itself, or I can just go ahead and use this huge screen that I have there. And we're going to go ahead and pour to our recipe, which was 15 grams. Again, this is a smaller flat bottom brewer. So most recipes are going to fall within that 14, 15, 16 gram. There are some 18 gram pours as well, but it really depends on that coarseness. Most of our pour over settings are around this like 50s to 60s range. You'll actually find some really fun experimental pour over settings within our apps over here as well. You're so close.
This is like a one bean situation here.
Horrible.
15.3.
That bean's too heavy. Okay.
It's a dense one.
We'll accept it.
Dense bean.
All right. So we can easily exit out of that. We're going to go ahead and go to recipes. We're going to do that 1 to 17 here.
There's our 4 pour that you just created.
And all we have to do now is set up our brewer.
Okay.
So we're just going to use the Omni brewer. This just goes ahead and just connects to the little arm. And we're going to pour
allow us for the agitation, right?
Correct. So if you are using your own brew method or anything like
places.
that, you can't actually use the agitation feature,
Yeah.
but you know, that's fine for a lot of cases. And what we're going to do is just go ahead and pour our beans into the top here, close the lid, and then Nick, what I'm going to have you do in a second here is press play.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
first-
I feel very powerful right now.
Yeah,
with
so
this in my hands.
You'll have to get your vessel in the correct spot right away, because if you touch it, again, this is connected to a scale, so it might kind of mess up the cool graph that it's going to be creating here in a second. So
Okay.
let's go ahead and we'll show everyone how to press play.
Okay.
It's a big play button.
So it's this big button right here, and I'm going to press it.
All right, so it's actually confirming that we put beans in there.
Step 1.
So we're going to go
Pour
ahead
the
and say,
beans.
let's go.
Let's go.
And it's actually going to show you the process
Wow.
both on the screen here
You
and
kind of
on
blink
the
and
app.
you miss it, but I love the arm for the Omni dripper that actually just moved into position as soon as we started. So you may have thought, oh man, guys, move the arm. Nah, xBloom's got it.
All right, so I'll actually be able to hold this off to the side. So both on this chart here, it's going to show what kind of process it's in, and on this cool digital display on the machine itself. Now, one cool thing is if you are brewing with a phone, you can actually put everything in a slot that stays right on the top side here. The iPad's a little bit big for that, but most phones fit right there.
I was going to say it's a test of faith, right? A test of confidence in is that going to fit in and stay there depending on which type of tablet you have.
Yes, and then the nerd inside me really loves the fact that you can watch this graph as well. So as you're extracting, oftentimes I'll go set up my pour over, I'll go back to my desk, and I'll watch as things are brewing.
I mean, if
from
I
my
know
desk.
anything about you and Mark, right? You both like graphs.
Yes.
Hence your press sensor battle. Also, great video review that we just did on the new Press Sensor 2.0 Coffee Flow app. So if you haven't seen that, definitely check that out. We're making press sensors available, for a limited time for a promo that we're doing. So if you haven't gotten one of those, check it out. Definitely watch the video because Coffee Flow 2.0 has updated a lot of really cool stuff. But anyway, that's just a little teaser. Back to the xBloom here.
So as we're waiting for this to make its final drip here, you can see that it's kind of going within these cool little circles. It's really hard to get to the bottom of this, but there is actually a little wand that can actually manipulate into whatever pour that you're looking
Correct.
at. So between these wide circles, smaller circles, you can do spirals
Yes,
as well, which is
exactly.
an entirely different extraction method, or that aggressive single pour.
And I do see the stream there, yeah. So like we saw when you set it up, first 3 of those 4 pours are the circular pour, then obviously we'll finish just in the center.
And the temperatures that you actually get between each one of these pours is extremely precise into what you actually input within the recipe. So if you're calling for 203, it is pretty on the money with that 203, which is great because, again, we're out in the atmosphere here. We're losing a lot of that energy where those batch brews kind of keep all of that energy. They're also staying a lot warmer because there's a lot more coffee. There's a lot more thermal mass as well. So these can fluctuate, but you know what's great while we're waiting for this? These are probably at a great temperature to taste now. So I feel like that's what it's all about, right?
That is what it's all about. We've got 6 cups here that we can use. So we can really do one for each of our methods.
So as mentioned before, the way that this Technivorm actually brews with that funnel, we can actually just go ahead and pour it.
Right, so no agitation or aeration necessary. We can just pour it and enjoy, which is what I enjoy.
All right. So
and then we'll see, does Mark want some coffee? Give us a thumbs up if you want some coffee back there, Mark. We got a thumbs up from Mark.
We got a thumbs up? Okay.
And then, you know what, I'll tell you what, we'll try all of these and tell you which one we like best, and we'll give you one of those.
All right, Mark, I'm coming to you.
This is still quite toasty. And so we do have a comment from Zach Root. Oh, you're welcome, Mark. You're welcome. Yes. Oh my God, I love those cups. What kind are they? These are, of course, the Varia sip glasses. I believe this is the mid-size, right? So you have the espresso cups and then essentially a small cappuccino and then kind of a latte-sized cup available. So, yeah, this is still quite hot.
Still quite hot. We'll be able to introduce some of the aromatics from this, which I'm definitely getting like a marshmallow. There's definitely like a toasted graham cracker. There's a little bit of berry behind that as well.
Yes, there are, I believe, several natural processed coffees that are used in the beaned up blend. So it does have quite a bit going on. Aromatically, it's quite lovely though.
It's lovely by itself too. I don't think it's too hot whatsoever. You can still definitely taste that sweetness that you can naturally get from that coffee. It tastes really good with milk too. So you can be black coffee drinker or with milk. I think it really enhances a lot of like this sweet caramel and the graham cracker. So it kind of just tastes like camping.
The beamed up is a sort of spiritual successor to our old beamed up, which some of you may remember was a espresso blend that launched alongside Crema Wave. It was back in, I believe, like 2020, 21 maybe. It could be even older than that, but beamed up was retired, but beamed up is I would say more crowd-pleasing, kind of easily accessible version of that. It's a medium roast, so you can use it on pretty much any kind of device, right? So, very nice though.
All right, so let's go ahead and grab our fellow there with our next. So again, these were brewed as precisely as possible to the same exact ratio. So the one thing that we need to do before this though is the fact that this pot brews from the top side only. There's no funnel attached to it, so we will have to do a little bit of a stir.
Now, would you use a spoon, or would you have me?
Typically, I would use a spoon. If you're in a rush, you can do a little swirl, but it doesn't really infuse too much.
Now, our cupping spoons.
Now, finding a spoon is maybe a little bit harder. We have so many drawers, but
we have many drawers.
Maybe no spoons.
In this case, we are going to.
We're going to go ahead and swirl.
Give it a swirl.
Just being careful, not to burn yourself there.
Coffee's a little messy, I would say, no matter what kind you're making.
So you won't be able to tell really within the color of how this is kind of stacking up, but you will be able to taste the difference. So that last cup will taste a little bit different from that first cup, unless we really agitate with a nice spoon.
I do like seeing a little mess. I feel like I've done work. Right? We've made a little bit of a mess. So let's see here.
It's a great barista attitude there. That's right. Except you clean
every drink. You make a mess so that you can clean it back up.
Well, yeah, it's like every drink or two is typically what we do in a cafe.
So actually much hotter, first of all. So I would say that on the Technivorm, despite the fact that we are actively heating it, and so again, that's going to be for 185 with the 8 to 10 cup. The thermal here, serving it in this time frame, so I'd say maybe like 5-6 minutes post brew, still very hot.
Yes. Yeah. So that thermal is definitely actually working pretty well as it was intended. But it is a lot of cool mass too. So one thing, if you do want it a little bit cooler, start with that whole entire thing nice and chilled. That'll initially kind of cool it down a little bit. Or if you want to keep it hot throughout the day, maybe warm it up with some hot water as well. All right, so this one, I feel like we could have stirred it a little bit more. I'm getting a great texture though. It's very velvety, which is what I really wanted out of those multiple pours. I'm still getting the sweetness from everything because it still hit that temperature where a lot of those aromatics and taste compounds are still extracted well.
I do feel just between the two of them, and I think it's most likely due to the serving temperature, I am getting much more kind of vibrant fruit aromatics from the Technivorm as opposed to the fellow here.
Yeah. And it could be the fact of no spoon.
Yes.
No spoons are not a good time. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go to our last.
Yeah, our
because
xBloom here.
It is done. So we'll just go ahead and split this one.
And this little guy has been kind of just chilling in open air at this point, you know, so there's been no active heating at all. So this is essentially just a pour over server at this point that we're drinking from.
It looks beautiful and silky. And we already know that this is gonna be the most adequately brewed, I would say, the most precisely brewed between all of them.
And we'll see how it did, right? Because we did what was it? We called it Bot versus Barista, where we had John go head to head with the xBloom. We'll see if he's still got a job after this little taste test here.
So already the aromatics kind of lost just because of the fact that it was kind of lost to the atmosphere during the brew. I get a lot of aromatics on these closed brew methods. Like that is the first thing that I really notice.
Coolest of them as well, despite the fact that we used it and brewed last.
And maybe somewhere in between. I get an amazing texture like I got from the fellow, and then I got that sweetness, but not quite as much sweetness as the Technivorm. So I would adjust things according to that is maybe brew at a higher temperature throughout the extraction. I would actually have that bloom be a little bit higher and then start dropping that temperature.
But really impressive coffee from all three of these, to be honest with you.
No complaints whatsoever.
Now, if you had a favorite that you had to pick, do you know where you'd land on this one?
This is tough. Fellow's still too hot.
I was going to say, everyone's favorite part of the stream, just watching us sip coffee.
So I think that the Technivorm out of the box actually outperformed right now, but that could be easily changed just by programming the other ones to perform like how this one did.
I would say so. I'd say this is certainly, of the three, my preferred cup, and I think it was the most ready to drink of the coffees that we made. I would like to have tried the xBloom basically right off brew, just to see the fellow, that thermal carafe, doing a really good job.
Great job.
Too good a job in this case, just a little too hot for me to really pick up on the nuance that I know you can get from beaned up.
But all fantastic options, and it's really kind of up to what you're looking for at home. I mean, after we've brewed already, we can actually compare and see what we really did for that brew and how we might change for the next time, which I could look at this graph and maybe find a couple things that I want to change for the next time that I actually brew this as well.
And it really didn't take you all that long, honestly, to set it up in the first place, right?
Oh, no, not at all. It takes a couple minutes. If not seconds, if you're going based off of some other recipe that's already out there.
Exactly.
Now you can kind of throw away that if you've already been given a recipe from a roaster of how it's intended, I guarantee you that's going to be better than most other brew methods of just trying to go for it.
Exactly. So, well, with that, Zach, I think we're at about it for time here.
I think so. So what would be your favorite?
I mean, I think, like I said, if it's just based on which cup I enjoyed the most today, I'd have to give it to the Moccamaster. And then I feel like, obviously, you know, with Aiden, one thing we really didn't talk about is the fact that, you know, with this, you can also do cold brew, right? So if you're looking for a whole other option, maybe that's something that we cover in another video, maybe comparing some cold brew opportunities on machines. I don't know. I would probably say, for me right now, it's between the Technivorm or the xBloom.
I'm going to say both because they're different brew methods.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's kind of where I'm going with this. This is sort of an all-in-one with the scale as well as we saw, and the grinder. So just the value is really, really strong there.
Definitely. So that is one thing to keep in mind. You will have to buy a grinder alongside the 2 batch brew methods, where this is that all-in-one. But with that, I think we covered just about everything for these batch brewers. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Zach.
I'm Nick.
And we'll see you next time.